She wants to sleep, and if you're playing with her, she can't tell if she wants to sleep or be playing with her.
For free?
Okay,
All right,
tell me when we're ready.
we're good to go. We're live.
Okay. Okay, thank you all very much for coming tonight to another one of Lake Fork Trophy Lures free every other Friday night seminars. And we've got two more people coming in right now, so I'm gonna let them come on in front of me and take a seat. Come on in, guys. Welcome. Welcome. Come on in. We got a nice turnout tonight, and we're especially appreciative. Find yourself a seat and make yourself at home. And there may be others coming. We'll squeeze them in too. As I say, we got a great turnout tonight, and I'm especially pleased to have probably 6 or 7 juniors, high school anglers or thereabouts, and a few regulars. We're always appreciative that you come. You're going to get a special treat tonight because we've got not just 3 but 4 of the best guides on Lake Fork, and we got Billy Lawson, whom you all know very well, who kind of got this started with me. We've got Michael McFarland, whom you all know very well, who's doing a great job for us. We got Austin Fowler, who was here about 2 weeks ago. He's standing in the bullpen ready to go whenever we say the word. And the special treat is we got a guide on this lake who was a personal friend of mine for about 30 years. He's been here for about 30 years, guiding for 30 years. We got Brian Duplashane, which is an unbelievable opportunity to hear him speak and ask him anything you want to ask him. Now, you better ask him questions because he has more knowledge, I think, than all of us have put together in terms of having been on fork fishing. So you're going to really enjoy that. So now I'm very appreciative that Brian has come tonight, and I'm going to ask him to speak first because he brought his lovely wife, who's a friend of mine also, and they're going to go eat as soon as he's through and then go to bed so he can get up and guide again tomorrow. So that's how the guiding business works. So again, thank you all for coming, and I'm going to ask Brian Duplashane to start this off. And again, ask him anything you want to ask him. Brian, come on up, buddy. Thank you very much for coming, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. How y'all doing? My name is Brian Duplashane. Been a full-time guide on Lake Fork for 32 years now, actually. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're trying to catch, Mr. Bass. Who is he? What is he? To better help yourself catch him, we need to understand, I think, 2 basic things about the bass. Who is he? And his habits and movements. Who is he? Little green fish. What's his purpose in life? 2 things. Above all else is to survive. That's number 1. Number 2, reproduce the species. That's all. No cell phones, no videos, no nothing. Survive, reproduce the species. He's not that smart. He's smart in the sense of survival. His brain ain't but that big, okay? His habits. Once we truly understand his habits and his movements, we can kind of get just a little bit more equal on his playing field. Habits, movements. 4 seasonal patterns. Each one, he does different things. Again, it's all about survival. Except for one. For one seasonal pattern, the spring, he does something different. Wintertime, comes real lethargic. Speaking about Lake Fork, probably 99% of these fish have some kind of Florida strain in them. They don't like cold that much. Why do we call them Floridas? Because that's where they come from, Florida. Why do we get it from Florida? Because they grow bigger. Why do they grow bigger? Because the weather down in Florida is warm 365 days a year. So that growing season is longer than up north. When it's cold, he's lethargic, doesn't eat as much. Warmer, more active, he eats more. He gets bigger. The more you eat, bigger you're going to get. Plain and simple. People say, well, you know, they're over here in Texas. What does Florida have to do with that? Genetics. It's in their DNA for millions of years. You can't get that out of them. When they come here, they're not going to like the cold. They're not gonna like the high pressure systems, the fronts. Native fish that were born and raised here, their genetics, they can handle that. I hear a lot from customers, on a tough day over here, man, I know if I'd have been here on this lake, we would have caught them. Yeah, you probably would have. Because you're not fishing for a Florida bass. Florida bass are very temperamental. Springtime, it's all about the spawn. Nothing else matters to them. They gotta lay those eggs, they gotta hatch them, and they gotta protect those babies. That's when they're the most vulnerable, is that time of year. Same thing with big bucks. Right now, they're chasing. You won't see them, but right now, man, it's easiest to kill them right now. Same thing with those big bass. Big bass, it's easiest to catch them in the spring. Big bass are a lot harder, as we know, to catch than little ones. Why? Big bass don't eat as often as little ones. They're kind of like humans. Little kids, man, always eating. Us, we'll eat breakfast maybe, we'll eat lunch maybe, and we'll probably eat dinner for sure. Same thing with the big bass. I mean, you'll grab some bite. He don't have to eat. Let me tell you this. I seen a 15-pound bass go 2 months without taking a bite. And he died. Why? The fish was perfectly healthy in an aquarium, weighed 15 pounds. Why did he quit eating? Oh, nobody knows. But he went 2 months, didn't take a bite. I was a commercial fisherman growing up. I was born and raised in a swamp, Louisiana. I had 5,000 feet of gill nets. I had hoop nets. I had various different traps to trap fish. I had 1,700 hooks. I kept 300 to 500 baited at a time. Some days I catch so many fish, I couldn't sell them all. So I built these cages in the swamp, and I had them hid. I just dump them in there because you know why? On those frontal days and high pressure days, I got 300 hooks with baits on them. I ain't got a fish on the hook. I got 3,000 feet of gill nets out there. Not a fish in the net. Stop and think about that.
Wow.
So I go over there, I had a guy that worked for me. I had hired him, he'd go sell the fish for me. He said, man, I need 1,000 pounds, I need 3,000 pounds. I go dip them up out of those cages. Those fish might have been in there a month and not eating nothing. So that kind of tells you, the fish don't eat all the time. And the thing about it is, we can have the best boat money can buy. We can have the best rod, the best reel. Man, we even got invisible line. The fish can't even see the line. Hooks, baits. Thing is, we can't control that living thing. If I'm playing basketball and I shoot the basketball and it don't go in that net, whose fault is it? It ain't the ball. It ain't the net. It ain't, it's me. I should be able to make that shot every time. Should be able to every time. You can make the perfect pitch, perfect cast. He's right there. He's next to that stump. He's there. He's in that grass. We can't control the bite. Can't control the bite. Movements. There's one thing I'm going to tell y'all, and y'all going to probably go, man, this guy's crazy. Like right now, you can't believe the phone calls I've gotten in October, late September, early October. Brian, have the fish moved have the shad moved in the back of the creeks yet? The shad don't move in the back of the creeks in the fall, guys. They move out. They move out. Remember this. I know you've heard that and you've read it. Shad moving in the back of the creeks in the fall. Does not happen. Shad move out of the creeks in the fall. Why? Because the shad know they have to migrate out of that shallow water and find deeper water. Why? Water temperature gets 42 degrees or lower, they're dead. Caribou, ducks and geese. You might have heard those geese this past week, man. Flock after flock, moving north, moving south. Why? Because they know if they stay up there, they can't make it. Same thing with the shad. Now, why people have that sense that shad move in the back of the creeks is because they've been fishing in the back of the creeks all summer long, and then all of a sudden September, October shows up, fish are schooling in the back of the creeks. Oh man, the shad are moving in the back of the creek. No, the shad are ganging up to move out of the creeks, and when they gang up, that's when the bass take advantage of that.
So we're the shad in the back all summer.
All summer. All summer.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
'Cause that's the only place I fish is back.
No, the shad, that, you know, shad love hot water, man. I mean, the hotter it is,
if there's grass and vegetation, they're happy campers.
I mean, they got it all. I mean, we know they're algae and zooplankton, plankton eaters
Right.
to begin with, and their food source is like right there. So in the wintertime, you know, that food source is gonna deplete too, cause that cold water is gonna kill
Sure.
a lot of that microorganisms and stuff.
Awesome.
The bass, well, why don't the bass? I'm telling you guys, the colder it gets, the shallower I'm gonna fish. Yeah, I got some deep spots I'm gonna fish too, but let me tell you, when it's cold, I'm going to the back of the creeks. You know why? Those fish are there. Those fish are not gonna leave because they know it's not gonna get cold enough to kill them. It's not in their DNA, like the caribou and the ducks and geese and the shad. But they're gonna be a little bit hungry because their food source has depleted. But remember, there's one that went 2 months without taking a bite. So they can go days, weeks without taking a bite.
Rod, do you feel like that's why the jig bite gets so good in the cold water? Because them bass up there turn to them crayfish a lot?
Man, crawfish start coming out in the winter.
Right,
Crawfish are buried right now.
right.
They're buried. You know, it won't be long, they'll be coming out and the mama's gonna have those babies. And that's why, you know, crawfish season, we'll start eating them in the restaurants, you know, February. You know, that's exactly why. That's why that jig, you know, and you know it's cold, the water's shallow, he's lethargic. He's gonna get next to an object that might hold some heat. You know, something dark that's absorbing that heat. And that's why in the wintertime we do that pitching. We fish slow. But hope that kind of helps out a little bit. But if y'all have any questions or something, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was huge.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective I've never heard. 3 guys that do it for a living back here wrong going, huh? Huh? That's really cool, man. That was awesome.
But yeah, you know, it just like I said, it's just one of those misconceptions that people have. That,
It does make
Absolutely.
sense because I've been seeing the shad balling up back in the back of the creeks, and then you see the bass, they're kind of surrounding that ball.
oh, absolutely, it's easy pickings for them.
Yeah, you
It's
just
easy
painted a
pick.
black and white picture. Now I can see it. I
Yeah.
didn't think they were in there in the summer, but they're scattered in the summer because it's
They're,
hot.
they're scattered. They're in the grass
And when we think that we see that regroup, we thought, hey, they just got back there. No, they just regrouped.
yeah, they just grouped up, kind of like the caribou and those ducks and geese. They get in herds and get in flocks
I'll be down.
and start moving.
Perfect analogy. Perfect. Wow.
No questions? No questions?
Come on.
And this guy knows, this got more knowledge than the rest of us combined. Y'all better ask
This
him.
guy has 2 years less, he has 2 years less on this lake than I have fishing period of my whole life. Come on. If you don't, I'm gonna, come on, someone ask a question.
How do you match up your bait size on shad for different times of the year?
Yeah, different times of year. I kind of watch. You got to kind of watch what's going on because right now, Darryl Bonnet, he's been fishing with me all week. Today was the last day. He came here Monday from Indiana, and we're catching fish out deep on a drop shot. And man, they come up and spit shad. They were exactly 4 inches long. I mean, exactly 4 inches long. So, you know, my swim baits, my swim jigs, my spinner baits, I try to make sure it's 3.5 to 4 inches long and try to mimic that. Now, earlier in the summer, they were chasing shad this big. So man, we were throwing a lot of little stuff, a lot of small, skinny dippers and stuff like that. Taking a limit gear spinner bait and cutting the skirt right behind the hook. The skirt's not but that long. No, little tiny blades, absolutely. Wintertime, big baits. Cause the little shad, that's another thing that we're gonna cover. The little shad are getting out of that shallow water. Those big gizzard shad, guess what?
Get in it.
They're coming
They
in.
can survive the colder water.
Yeah, they're coming in. I saw one floating the other day. I measured him, he was 9.5 inches long. Now, I found one out here that was 18 inches long. He was 18 inches long, and from his back to his belly, it was like that. I'll start throwing AC plugs. I'll start throwing Cascade trouts. Just anything big swim baits. Wintertime.
Right back in the same shallow water. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
shallow and deep. You know, the biggest fish I personally caught weighed 14 pounds, 4 ounces, and I caught it December 17th, in the middle of December, on an AC plug.
Wow.
He was in 25 foot of water, but they were schooling. Yeah. It was going crazy.
Top one. 14 pounder on top water, that's gotta be the biggest top water fish I've ever heard of. That's pretty cool.
That's cool for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there any key depth right now that any of these high school boys should be keying in on for this tournament this weekend?
Yeah. Probably 4 feet, 3 feet of water and shallower, or 18 to 20. That's where I'd be. And I'd have a buzz bait tied on, so you know where you're gonna be throwing it. I'd have one of them little spinner baits with the skirt, like I was talking about, right behind the hook. You know where you're gonna be throwing it. You know, shallow, those 2 shallow baits. Deep, gonna be a Texas rig, 18, 20 foot Texas rig, yeah. If it's calm enough, 1/4 ounce weight, throw that puppy out there, man, and just drag it. Just drag it. And of course, your drop shot. Drop shot, my worm ain't that high off my weight. 10 inches max. Today, Darryl, he had one worm this high on the bottom, and then he had another worm up here. He double rigged it. Never caught one on the, did you, Darryl?
Nope.
Never caught one.
It was on a 6-inch drop.
Yeah, all on that little, you know, just that high off of the bottom. And we're not moving it either. Don't shake it, just let it there. Just barely move it.
I noticed that today too.
Yeah, just barely move it. Seems like they really want a real subtle presentation right now.
Every time that somebody would ask a question, it'd stop before we get them today.
Yeah.
They even caught it themselves, and every time we stop, we get
Oh, yeah.
distracted, then we get bit.
Absolutely.
Slow down.
Absolutely, yeah. We caught some big fish on a buzzbait. We missed some big fish. We missed some big fish on a buzzbait too, but there's a lot of big fish shallow. I mean, real shallow. I need to key in on 2 types of grasses: lily pads and pepper grass. That's the grass I need to key in on.
Sorry, I'm the same one, that's a pepper grass now, that's that little, you got the alligator grass, a lot of times it'll grow right adjacent to it, it looks kinda,
No. Pepper grass has got the long leaf. Looks like a willow leaf,
okay,
lays on top of the water.
alright, I
Yeah.
thought that was duckweed.
No, it's a shallow growing
Alright,
grass.
I've seen it,
Pepper grass is a
little
shallow,
leaves all over,
yeah, it just lays on top. It's got a little stem about big around the toothpick, and then the leaves, just like a willow leaf. Got long and kinda,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
shaped like that. And a lot of times on the edge of that, the next grass that grows out is 2 types of grass. Your pepper grass is gonna be the shallowest growing in the water. And then your next one in the water column is gonna be your milfoil and your shrimp grass. I think shrimp grass is the best grass, well, besides maybe hydrilla, but shrimp grass, man. If you can find some shrimp grass, those fish love that shrimp grass. That shrimp grass holds a lot of zooplankton. A lot of times you'll pick it up, and if you look at it close, you'll see all these little crustacean looking things crawling on them leaves and stuff.
What does that look like, that grass?
It's kind of hard. It's got a small stem, but every so often it has like a leafy thing, but it's about that big around. But it's all little single things that
Little
come up.
things.
And
Little green?
yeah, it's real green,
Okay.
vivid green, and it's kind of hard, kind of.
Is it light though too? I mean.
Yep, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I know what it is now.
Yeah, and then of course the milfoil is mixed in there. The milfoil will come to the top, the shrimp grass won't. The
Okay.
shrimp grass won't come maybe 6 inches to a foot at the most off of the bottom.
I know what that is now.
When do the bigger fish start moving out of the back of them creeks?
Okay, the bigger fish, let's see how we do this. There's 2 kinds of bass in the lake. There's one that's a shallow oriented bass, and one's a deep oriented bass. And there's probably more shallow water fish than there are deep water fish. Deep water fish, to me, is 20 feet plus. Shallow is in. Now, what decides one to be shallow and one decides he wants to be deep? I don't know. The shallow water fish, I call them residential fish, because they'll stay on a particular shoreline, maybe 50 yards this way, maybe 50 yards that way, out to 15, 20 foot this way. And he stays there. Some of them live and die right there. So they're residential fish. I think, during the course of their life, maybe he might decide to wander off. They all do. It's like when they're born, some of those fry are gonna stay where they're born, and we all know some of them are gonna take off. Deep water fish, nomads, very nomadic. I mean, I've got on these points and humps out here where, catching them. Go out there the next day and there's no fish there. And start going around in a circle until I'm bumping the shoreline. I ain't found a fish yet. Come back 2 hours later, you're covered on that hump or that roadbed. So very nomadic. Deep water fish are very nomadic. You have 1 pound fish in 30 foot of water. You have 1 pound fish in 3 foot of water. You got 10 pounders in 30 foot. You got 10 pounders in 3 foot. So it's like, some of those blow-ups, we got a couple of the blow-ups on that buzzbait. Man, they were big. I know they were 8 plus. What was the biggest one?
725.
725 on the buzzbait. I'm talking 3, 4 foot of water.
Right now, is a buzzbait better than, like, say, a spoke or something like that?
Yeah. And I think the reason why is because those shadow moving. I mean, a lot of times see those flags flickering out there. And I think that buzzbait right now is kind of aggravates them. It's coming through the water, and then they're looking up. I mean, they're looking up. Now, we're gonna give away a little secret here.
Wow.
We're throwing a specific buzzbait, and that was the game changer for us. I don't know if y'all ever heard of a Boogerman's buzzbait, but
Head slapping blade.
that's what we were using. And the Boogerman, for y'all who don't know, the head on it is kind of long and flat, and the blade hits the head.
There's an exact replica of that for sale at that counter right there, by the way.
Yep.
Ronnie had somebody, basically a knockoff of the old Boogerman.
Yeah.
It's being reproduced now, and Ronnie sold them at the front counter.
I was looking for him, and he told me he had them.
Yeah.
He goes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're up there.
I'm telling you, man.
Any
That's,
colors that was specific, or does that not really matter?
Do what now?
Any color specific with those, or does that not really matter?
No, we threw 2 colors, white and silver. So
Rip the skirt off and put a frog on it.
yeah, no skirt.
Make sure you're using at least a 5/0 hook in your
Put
buzzbait.
a frog or a magic shad boot tail. Either one of those 2.
What size boot tail?
The 3.5.
Only one likes it.
Yeah.
And where'd you throw that?
I mean,
Now that might cost you.
Throw it in the water.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Throw it in the water.
Yeah.
I must have been throwing it in the wrong place.
That's what I thought all freaking week.
No, I was throwing it for about 2.5 hours today. right through that same stuff too, exactly what you said.
Hey, you know you got a good guy up there when all the guys are asking him question after question.
Hey, well, I'll tell you one anymore, I'll go one up on you.
I'm here
When
more
a-
as a
when a
spectator
guy,
than I am a guy.
when a guy fishes his
Anybody?
whole life, and I
What
just
about
learned a lot,
Do what?
fellas.
The Whoppers, Whopper, have you fished them?
About
Oh, absolutely,
things
and then
right
trust me,
there.
I threw it this week,
Potatoes.
never had a blow up on it. I throw it a lot.
I probably got $300 worth of them, and I ain't never caught a fish on one.
It's a
I
bait,
was-
it's a bait you have to commit to.
Mhm.
I mean, I've caught a lot of fish on it and caught a lot of big fish on it, but I don't catch them every day on it. You know, I don't catch them everywhere on it.
I was wondering if it might be just a little too aggressive.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, the bass in this lake are gonna probably be the most aggressive fish in this lake, besides maybe a bowfin.
Yeah, I caught some of them.
Yeah, cause a bass, I mean, he's the bull of the wood. I mean, you know, he's an ambush guy. I mean, he's the wolf, and everything else is prey. Cause let me tell you, they eat anything they can get in their mouth. Whether it's a bowfin, a grinnell, a small one, they eat them like crazy. It's like a little hot dog to them, man. Just goes right in. Baby catfish, they'll eat baby catfish, carp, baby buffalo, baby drum, they'll eat anything, you know. When all the white bass showed up, a lot of people say, oh man, you know, look man, that's just another food source for them big bass. That's how I look at it, plain and simple.
A lot of people was telling me watermelon and red color,
There's only two colors right now.
white and silver.
There's only two colors in a worm. If you're talking about worm, there's only two colors for me. And that's, number one is tomato, and number two is redbud.
I've been getting all my kids on, like say the shad
I
color.
don't know,
Yeah.
I'm just not
Yeah.
throwing it
But
right
then,
spot.
you know, if I'm not catching anything,
Go
I
look
get
at my
blue
books,
bites,
see, that's what's
I'll
on
throw a culprit tomato seed.
Got the buzz
And
bait.
I just call that my catch-all
Yeah.
worm. A lot of times it catches, you know, you're gonna catch the young, the smaller ones. But every once in a while you'll have the big ones.
Yeah. Color makes a difference, color makes a difference.
And they work real well on a shaky.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Brian, man, we appreciate that. That was,
Yeah.
what a special treat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here in the same,
Oh, it's an honor.
in the same space with you. I tell you what, Brian's a guy that I've looked up to for a long time, before I was guiding and everything, so this is a special treat for me. I really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank y'all for coming here and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll give big hands.
We'll try to keep bringing him back.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get him back one of these days.
Okie dokie.
Appreciate it.
All righty.
Wow. That was,
That was a big deal.
yeah, that was a big deal. And I don't know how many of you guys understand, wow, the knowledge level that just happened. I mean, there's three guys in the back that do it for a living every day, and we're going, what? Huh? Really? And all of us are taking it for gospel, because when it comes from him, it is.
It
You
is.
trust every word he says. He's the most
Guaranteed.
high integrity, honest guy. He's one of the best people you'll ever meet, and obviously knows a lot about bass fishing. So, all right, I'm going to quit kissing his rear end, and I'm gonna start talking. So, I've been catching some fish on a shallow jig already. So, not to argue with anything that he was saying, but there may be some of those crawfish already moving shallow, because we've been catching on a real small quarter ounce jig with the LFT flipper that's cut way down. Just, I mean, the whole package is maybe that long, flipping it in some grass. So that is a shallow pattern, but I'm actually going to talk to you tonight about offshore structure fishing in the fall, because just like Brian said, we have residential fish that stay shallow. We have another version of kind of residential fish that are always out deep, but like you said, they move around a lot, and that is very true. You have to run a lot of spots. You know, it seems like all the time out here when you're fishing deep, you have to cover a lot of water and hit a lot of spots. Whether it's summertime, everybody kind of talks about that, but in the fall, it's very similar. You can check a spot and it'd be empty, check the next spot, it'd be full, go back to that spot you checked before, now it's full, then you go back to the other spot and it's empty. I mean, that's a common thing that happens a lot. So, big thing for me, over the last couple weeks, with the cold fronts, when you get on the post farm days, they're going to get a little deeper, 17, 18, 19, 20 feet. That's what they're going to be. On these south wind days, has been a very, very good offshore bite early on the warming trend days, the south wind days, the days when you think they should be biting good during the fall period. Early in the morning, there's been a phenomenal offshore bite, but it's been a little higher, up around 15 foot. So they're climbing a little bit. The big thing in the fall, if any of you guys saw the video that I did on offshore structure fishing back in May, post one, I talked about the long extended points and the flat spots on top with the deep water adjacent. The same thing applies, but it's not just main lake points. That deal in May is more specific to main lake points. This deal is actually a little better on row beds and humps and pond dams and stuff like that. Works a little better. So the biggest thing is, and you can't find them on points above, but the biggest thing is finding that flat spot. Will you hand me that board, Austin? Sorry, buddy. So I kind of diagrammed one out here. And this is a point / pond dam. It's out on the main lake on Lake Fork. And you can see I've got 16 foot. This one's 16 foot on top. But what I drew right out next to it was 30 plus. So 30 plus feet is what I'm looking for. What I want is a very tight contour line. See how long it'll be 16 foot from here to here. All that is one big old flat spot on top, one big ridge that they can get on that's completely flat. They pull up there and push those barfish and those shad, big gizzard shad, whatever else that might be out there, sand bass, crappie, anything that might be swimming around. They push that up on that flat spot and get up there with them and go to town. So, but the big key is 30 plus, very close. You should be able to sit in 30 plus and cast across your flat spot. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the big key as far as locating them. Find as many spots on your map that match that wide spot in 15 to 20 feet, 30 plus, very close adjacent. That's what you're looking for, right? Everybody's trying to figure out what spot that is. I know y'all are. First thing Austin Fowler said when I was drawing it, hey, that's such and such. I know where it is. Mm-hmm. But guys, that's what happened. The other big thing that happens in the fall is like Brian said, they'll eat anything. Well, this time of year they are eating anything because it's a big deal in the fall that you can have every species of game fish and bait fish in the lake in one location. I mean, the crappie will get mixed in with the catfish and the catfish with the sand bass and barfish and largemouth and shad. It's all just a big conglomerate. For that reason, I love a spoon. A jigging spoon and a flutter spoon both. A flutter spoon is going to be your trophy, you know, if you're head hunting. You guys are fishing a tournament tomorrow and you got you a limit of unders in the morning, you want to go head hunting, find some stuff like that and get a big flutter spoon. And that's your head hunter bait right there. I mean, you may not get a bite on it, but when you do, it's usually a giant. So that just mimics all those big bait that's down there, whether it be crappie or barfish or whatever. The jigging spoon, the reason I love it so much, it's a species identifier. And don't make no mistake, a big bass will jump on a jigging spoon. I had one a few days ago, little old 3/4 ounce slab spoon, jumped all over it. I mean, caught a 7-pounder right there. So you do from time to time pop those big heads on the jigging spoons as well. But what that jigging spoon does so effectively, just automatic just about, is this going to tell you what species of fish is down there. It's going to tell you, is this crappie? Is this big sand bass? When I find a big school and the first thing I catch is a big old 2-3 pound sand bass, that's the one time that I do kind of shy away and go, especially if I catch 3 or 4 in a row and they're all big sand bass. A special fish, a once in a lifetime fish will eat that sand bass. There's no doubt about it. I don't feel like there's a lot of 7 and 8, 9 pounders running around here eating 3-pound sand bass. Just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. So when I see the big schools of really big sand bass, they do tend to stick together and kind of bully all the other fish around a little bit. They get in big schools, we all know that. So when I see the big sand bass, I kind of back off and maybe go look somewhere else. But when I see little crappie, when I see the biggest key in the fall is the barfish, those yellow bass. When you throw that jigging spoon out there and you pop you a little yellow bass about the size of your hand or smaller, I promise you, without a doubt, the fish you want to catch are right there in your neighborhood. Because everything from a 4 or 5 pounder to a 15 pounder will eat that barfish. It's just candy to them. And this is the one time of year where they really do, like I said, all the species mixed together. The big bass get on the same structure as those barfish. Working patterns. On the good days when they're really biting, you can catch them on a 3/4 ounce jig out there. You can catch them on a Carolina rig. And of course the big spoons. And Alabama rigs every day are catching fish on the offshore structure. You know, the fall is a great time, probably the best time to throw an Alabama rig. And you got to throw it out there. And you don't top these flat spots. And if you're going to throw an Alabama rig with jig head, you better hope there ain't no trees out there. Because what you got to do, make as long cast as you can, and let that thing go all the way to the bottom, and just crawl it. That's the other thing right now, guys. These fish, especially on our post-frontal days, they're relating really close to the bottom on the crest of this structure. They're just pinned down to it. On the cold front days, I mean, it's almost hard to see them on your graph. They're so close to it. You'll catch them. They'll have mud on their belly sometimes. They're just stuck to the bottom on the crest of that structure. On the southwind days, the more aggressive days, they'll get up a little bit, but they're still. And that goes to say what Brian was talking about with the drop shot. This is too high, so you got to keep that Alabama rig grinding the bottom, just clinking along, right? It's a tough thing to do, but that's how you got to catch them. Because that Alabama rig, with all the drag it has, wants to lift, so you got to really extremely go slow and creep and crawl it to get it to stay down where it needs to be. But yeah, so that's it. I know I normally do a lot of shallow stuff, but I've been doing a lot of offshore structure fishing here lately, and that's what's been working for me. You know, the fall is biggest home run time of the year. You catch the right day, pull up on the right school on one of those spots, I promise you, you'll never forget it the rest of your life. One of the spots I've been rotating here lately and fishing, several years ago, I mean, I was not even thinking about guiding, but the lake was really, I think it might have been 2011 when the lake was at its lowest. That's maybe how long ago it was, but fishing a long point that came out, had a long flat spot on it, and it was November, and found a school of fish, got to catching them that year. I was catching them on a shaky head, a straight tail worm, and I sat in one place for 4 hours. Found those fish, threw a buoy marker out beside my boat, sat right there beside that buoy marker for 4 hours, and never went more than 10 minutes without a bite. That's what can happen in the fall. Best fishing day of my life, by far, hands down. Nothing else has come ever close to that, and they were anywhere from 2 pounds to 7 pounds. I mean, just sat there and one after. It was incredible. This lake that's what makes this lake so special is, you know, it's a home run lake, and it's a home run time of year. So you get out on some of that stuff where you can hit a home run, and it's a matter of time before you're going to connect, and it's really special. Questions? Come on now. Come on now.
What colors are working best for you right now?
What colors are working best? Well, on the spoons, you know, it's all silverish, shaddish colored. There is a jigging spoon that I use that has some chartreuse in it. And I think that has to do with the barfish relation. You look at those yellow basses barfish, they got a lot of yellow chartreusey color to them. So that is the one, I'll be honest with you, on my jigging spoons, the silver ones, I have never, ever, ever caught a bass on the silver spoon. I've caught plenty of bass on that one with chartreuse, and it's got a little orange throat on it. It's called coleslaw color, but it's chartreuse and white painted spoon. That jigging spoon I catch a lot of bass on. Those are the ones that the bass will jump on. On my jigs, I'm using green and brown. I don't know if that's the best color to use, but other than black and blue, it's about the only color I throw. On my jigs, I use a green and brown mix, and I use a black and blue. That's about the only jig color I ever throw, so that's what I'm using.
I've been having some luck with the shaky head with like a Senko,
Mm-hmm.
the watermelon with a chartreuse tip
There you go.
on the tail.
Little chartreuse
And
tip.
that does make sense.
Watermelon is never a bad color to throw. Watermelon, anything. I think watermelon is just such a natural, non-offensive color. I think so many times we get so cute in it. Well, we're trying to match this, we're trying to match that. I think a lot of times what we're trying to do is just tell them not to bite it. You know, we want to avoid telling them to not bite it. You know, you throw something kind of crazy out there, maybe you're telling them not to bite it. But you know what Brian was saying, with these guys are throwing a lot of red. Reds always work on this lake, whether it's tomato seed, whether it's plum, whatever it may be. Those red tinted plastics always seem to work out here. But on my jigs, yeah, I stick with green and brown. Just try to keep it natural. So.
How do you decide between gold or silver spoon?
I don't ever use a gold.
I don't either, that's why I'm asking.
I don't know. I don't know how to decide because I've never tried.
Do.
I've never tried. So my big flutter spoon, I have one that you can't go by. I have one that Joe Spade's the guy that originally made the flutter spoon. It's a time-consuming process, but through years of friendship, it took me like 5 years to get one of these from him, and now I've got several that he's let me have. But
There's one short. You're one short from the last time when I was in your boat.
that's true. Yeah, that's probably true. Mike does tend to, yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all, buddy. Big shout out to Mikey Mack in the back for you guys online. Mike McFarland is in the building. We'll bring him up here at the end and ask some questions. But that spoon, it's kind of in between a silver and gold, honestly. It's kind of a hand-painted, it has some sparkle to it, and it's got an epoxy on it. It's got a little hand-drawn purple-blue line on it. It's really special. But, just as far as the regular spoons, I've always used silver.
As
How
far-
big?
How big? I use the Jumbo Joe, which is a 6-inch spoon. Now, the Ben Parker spoons and like that, they get 8, 9 inches, some crazy stuff. And there's nothing wrong with throwing those either. Just like Brian alluded to, the fish that we're hunting for, 6-pounder will eat an 8-inch, 9-inch shad, no problem. And that's what you're imitating is a shad with that spoon, or maybe a crappie. A 6-pounder will eat an 8 or 9-inch crappie, no problem as well. Today, we actually I caught an 8-inch crappie. I caught a ton of barfish. We didn't catch any catfish today, which is kind of weird because we normally catch a couple catfish, and we normally catch a little 9 or 10-inch catfish. And we didn't catch any sand bass today, which was a good thing in my opinion. And then we caught some largemouth. I caught a couple big largemouth there. We caught a couple good ones. So we caught some other ones, some other smaller ones as well. Nothing wrong with throwing the biggest spoon you can buy. The Ben Parker, I think, is the biggest one on the market. So.
As far as your shallow water fishing, chatterbait.
Some days, yes. I'm rotating. They're getting a little picky on moving baits with these cold fronts, right? If I've got a dark day, if I've got some color in the water like this morning from the rain we've had the last couple of days, we did catch fish on a chatterbait this morning. But I am really having to get shorter and shorter on my trailer, it seems, more and more compact. The tougher the conditions are, which the last couple of days have been really tough post front, right? So, but I'm rotating between a chatterbait, a swim jig, and a weedless swim bait, the smaller weedless swim baits. Like those are my 3 baits that I have all 3 tied on, and we'll throw a little bit of everything just to try and key in on which one they want more than another. And then if you want to swing for a home run, especially you tournament guys smart catching over, hey, that big Smash Tech Convict is getting a bite every once in a while. It's not as good as it was 3 or 4 weeks ago where we were getting bites every day on it. We're not getting bit every day, so you can zero on it. I'm gonna be honest with you. You pick it up and throw it, you might not catch a thing, but you can catch one on it every once in a while that if you connect with it, it counts. All right.
Well, that
question.
I'm sorry, you go ahead, sir.
Crawfish, you say you think they're coming out already?
Yeah.
When will they turn that gold orange color? That's still gonna be
So
January or?
yeah, so this time of year, well, I have an alternative theory on that. Mike's heard it before, but this time of year, our crawfish, our crayfish in this area, and I told you what color jig I'm throwing. Well, they're green and brown. They're a dark green pumpkin and a light brown color this time of year. The red stuff that we see actually comes in February and March. They get that bright red. When crawfish season starts and you start eating red crawfish, that's when the crawfish start getting red. But something that most people don't understand is that the vast majority of the crayfish that are in freshwater lakes here in northeast Texas, they don't turn red. There's some that do. There's a few that do, and they like to live up in willow bushes and gator weed. They live shallow all year. Those are the same type South Louisiana has and southeast Texas, and they will turn red. But that is not nearly as predominant as some of the deeper water oriented crayfish that move shallow and move deep. And they pretty much are always a black with a little bit of blue. That's the color they turn when the others turn red. And how many people throw a black and blue jig in March? Has there ever been a big 10-pounder caught on fork with a black and blue jig in March? I think so, right? And then in the rest of the year, towards the end of summer and all fall, they're a greenish brownish color.
I had a guy tell me one time to look at the boat ground, and you'll see crawfish right there, and try to mimic what color the crawfish are right there.
Yeah. So all this hyacinth stuff that Texas Parks and Wildlife's gone to war with on this lake, and the gator weed, if you'll ever take some of that and just scoop up much of it as you can and throw it on the deck of your boat and pull it up and watch what falls out the bottom of it. If there's life in that area, you'll see a bunch of crawfish come out of it. They love to get on the other side of those roots. They eat it, that's what they're eating and all that. So, and that's actually what I'm doing with that little jig this time of year, is where I'm seeing that grass grow to the surface, I'm flipping it right next to that and letting it fall down the side of it. Because as those crawfish are up in those grass mats and eating stuff, when they fall out, crawfish swim backwards, right? If you've ever seen a crawfish hit something in the water, he goes completely limp. When he's swimming backwards, he can't see where he's going. When he bumps into a hard grass stem or a tree or anything that he hits that impedes his progress, when he hits it, he just goes dead and falls. Well, that little 1/4 ounce jig with a very, very slow fall, which is what it has, it looks exactly like one of those little crawfish that just hit something and fell out of that grass mat. It just got, you know what I mean? It doesn't really kick or flutter, it just has a dead slow fall. And that's exactly what it mimics. And it's the most consistent bite I have of shallow right now. I mean, we're catching fish every single day on it. It just started this week. That's always been a bite that's been really dependable for me from year to year. Going back to your question on the orange and the orange color.
Or the gold.
Yeah, the gold and orange color that we all throw we all throw those colors of baits in the wintertime, right? Our brim in this lake and in this area and all across the south turn that color in winter. They have a bright orange throat and they get a golden brown color to most of their body. So my theory on that is, much like Brian was alluding to earlier, those threadfin shad do not live shallow in the cold. Gizzard shad do, but the threadfin don't. Well, what does a bass eat when they eat shad? What's his first choice? Usually brim. The vast majority of bass are going to start focusing on brim. Well, those brim have that bright orange throat and that gold, and we all know we throw gold and orange traps all winter. We throw gold and orange. We get a big gold blade spinnerbait with an orange or red skirt, right? That's imitating, to me, that's imitating a brim. That's what I believe it imitates. So.
Okay.
But that happens just when the water gets cold. December, you know, you can start doing it a little bit now as we get later in November, kind of when that water gets into the lower end of the 60s. When those brim, when their bodies start getting cold, that's when that color fades out of them and they get that bright orange and that gold color and that dark color kind of goes away.
Back to that convict bite.
Yes, sir.
You said that norm was better a few weeks back.
Right.
Will it get good again still? Will it be?
Yep.
Or is it,
Yeah, stabilization is what you need. So for those fish to bite a big bait every single day, for them to get into a feeding pattern where they have a cycle at some point during the day, every day, where they're eating big baits that you're throwing aggressively, you have to have stable weather. That's our biggest enemy in the fall. You know, I tell everybody, fall's my favorite time of the year to fish, unless a front blew through yesterday. Well, how many times has a front blew through in the last couple of weeks? Like every other day, it seems like. We've actually got a stretch coming up where we're going to have several days, kind of starting right now, starting tomorrow. We're going to have several days where the temps are kind of stable and climbing and getting around 70 in the afternoons. As those stable temps come in, I would anticipate, not that this may not do any of y'all any good, because by the time next weekend comes, I think we got a cold front coming on Saturday. By the time we hit the end of this next week, I'm kind of thinking that what's going to go down is we're going to start catching big fish on the big baits more consistently. That'll be something, if you follow the Instagram or the Facebook page, you guys can kind of follow along with what I do on a more day-to-day basis. You'll see some big convict catches coming. Because I get excited when I catch one of the big baits. I'll let you know. It gets me so. It's the most addicting bite you'll ever experience.
So cold front tournament day, what do you do?
Cold front tournament day. That little 1/4 ounce jig up shallow will give me my unders. I mean, I know that's gonna catch me some fat unders, and it's gonna catch some slot fish too. But if I'm in an area that has the right size fish and there's grass, which I have some areas like that have some really good unders in them. So if I was gonna fish a tournament, that's what I'd do. I'd flip that little jig till I had 5, close to 2 pounds, as close as I could get. And then those shallow fish are more affected by the cold fronts than the deep fish. So for me, on a cold front day, once I have my limit, I would go deep with the big spoons. Big spoons, maybe throw the jig, see if I can get a bite on the big jig out there, 3/4 ounce one. But primarily the big spoon will be my game plan out deep to get it over.
You talked about the crawfish, you know, when they move backwards.
Yeah.
Other guy showed me a rig that he was doing, and it was, he would put a tungsten weight on a Texas rig hook, you know, trailer hook,
Mhm.
and then rig the worm back, rig like a Lake Fork creature backwards, and then punch the grass mats with it. To where when it punched, the Lake Fork creature was actually looking, natural
Mhm.
as it went down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's
I mean,
the way to
you
do it. I
think-
mean, when I want to imitate a crawfish, I've always gone to a jig. And you put a crawl trailer or small.
And I don't
crawl
know
trailer,
if he was
yeah,
imitating a crawfish
Yeah.
or just trying to punch the pad
Do something
and make it
different.
look natural.
Make it look something a little different, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason to not try that. I mean, that's the thing about bass fishing. I think a lot of times we give them too much credit. They're not smart. They're really not smart. We just don't understand their world as well as we want to because we don't live in water. You know, we go out there and it's a post funnel day and we're like, oh man, it's 38 degrees this morning. I'm freezing, I'm cold. 65 degrees in that water. You know, are they a little down and out because it's post frontal and if you get a light east wind and a bluebird sky in summer, they shut down. They don't like it. They don't like that high pressure system. They never have. Florida bass, like Brian was talking about, are even more affected by it. But these cold fronts in fall are not a complete shutdown. You can still catch plenty of fish. They'll still eat. You just have to kind of adjust what you're doing. Now you get one of these post frontal days in the wintertime when the water's 42 degrees, then yeah, good luck. You know, you get a few bites and you've done well. So we get a little bit, it gets in our head more than it affects them. You have to constantly be thinking, yeah, I'm feeling this way. I'm seeing these conditions. What's the conditions down there? What's his conditions? Because the more that you can understand his world, they're not hard to catch once you figure them out. They're really not.
What about crankbaits right
Not a deal for me. Not a deal for me. Never have been this time of year on Fork. Just never have had success this time of year. I don't know if that's just too aggressive for the mood they're in. These frontal systems get them temperamental. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with how tight they get to the bottom on that stuff. I don't know. It's just never been a thing for me in the fall. Any more questions? All right, Mr. Fowler, you ready? Yes. All right, we got Austin coming up here. For those of you that don't know, Austin is he's new to guiding, but he's a second generation guide. His father is a long time guide out here. His father's kind of getting out of the guide business a little bit. And Austin is stepping into his place and then some, and he's a good friend of mine. We've had some good times together on water, haven't we?
Yeah. Got my butt kicked several times by this thing, so I'll talk about it.
Yeah, we was doing a wacky worm video a few weeks back, if you guys saw it, and I actually roped one. That's right. I just took the line and threw it out there like that, and I caught one on wacky worm while Austin was struggling. That's all right.
It was one of those days where everybody's got to have one of those days.
That's right. It was one of those days. We had a good time nonetheless. He is a great guy. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's been around the lake before he can remember, I'm sure. Yeah. And he's been fishing his whole life, and he's phenomenal. He's been a very successful collegiate angler for you young guys. If y'all want to pick his brain about that, he did very well in college tournament fishing. But yeah, Austin Fowler, get after it, buddy. Thank you.
Well, I just want to go over what's bait's been the most consistent for me, and I think it's going to be a big key factor for some of you high school anglers fishing tomorrow. And it's just the old wacky worm. And what I'm throwing is, I'm going to go over what I'm throwing it, what size line, what rod and everything like that, where I'm throwing it. But I'm throwing just an old trick worm wacky worm. This one's actually made by Talon Lures, and the only difference between this and the Zoom trick worm is the fat tail. So this tail, when I'm actually working it, it's going to push a lot more weight with it than a regular trick worm, but the trick worms will be just fine. And I've been throwing watermelon red, watermelon candy, anything natural color like that too. I've been actually throwing plum too, but this has been the most consistent for me. And I'm throwing on a 1/aught haul hook, which is kind of like a little local guy makes these hooks around here. I think Oak Ridge sells them now. But just a regular 1/aught hook with a weed guard. And I've got it rigged wacky style, and I've got a little O-ring over it so where I'm saving this wacky worm, and I'm not throwing my worm off consistently, which is really annoying, costs you money, you backlash your reel and stuff like that too. And I've got a nail weight in the head of it too, to where I've got more weight to it, where I can throw it in the wind today like I did, and it sinks a lot faster, and it sinks kind of like a shaky head too when I'm working it. So this nail weight is actually going to be sinking kind of like that. And so this has been the most consistent thing for me, and I've caught a lot of unders on it all week in the last few weeks, and especially this post-front conditions. It's the most consistent thing that works day in, day out. I bet today we caught 20 fish on it today, and we probably had 8 pounds, our best 5. So, I mean, the 8 pounds is going to go a long way for y'all. And so, the nail weight that I have in it, I think I got it from Lake Fort Marina. They sell them. But I break it in half, and I use the tip that's got the spear in it, and I'm just sticking that in the head of it. All the way in to where it won't come out. Just like that. And so, like those lily pads that Brian was talking about, he's throwing those buzz baits. I'm actually throwing this in those lily pads too, so it'd be great for you to go throw that buzz bait up there. Sun comes up later in the afternoon, throw this wacky worm in these lily pads. We kicked their butt today.
Great follow bait too. If you're throwing a buzz bait and you miss one,
Yes.
fire that thing in there. You'll catch 90% of them.
Or a frog. Like, I've done it several times throwing a frog and miss a blow up on a frog,
Yeah,
and
throw
you
that.
just fall right up with it. But other than that, I mean, it's a pretty simple technique, but a lot of people overlook it, and it's been the best thing working for me. I would definitely have one tied on if I were y'all. Other than that,
What's the key? What's the keys to your area? Like, how are you? Where are you throwing that? What's kind of the key things you're looking for in those areas?
basically anywhere shallow. Like I said, I've been throwing it lily pads today is what worked best for us today. And mostly around docks. I'll skip it under some docks. I'm throwing in some grass, some billy grass, some hydrilla. Yeah, but so and the weed guard's real weedless too. So I'm not reeling in any grass or nothing. I'm not getting hung up, and so that weed guard is very, very key. And I've used a lot of wacky hooks before too. Wacky worm is one of my favorite techniques to use. I think it catches them day in, day out. Like I said, post front conditions, tough week today. We're catching numbers, but I do think you put this in front of a big fish's face, and I don't think a big fish can resist this at all either. So, other than that, Mike, you got a question?
Any specific colors right now that work?
Yeah, so I've used watermelon red has been my most consistent. That's what I've used the most. I've used plum. I've used watermelon candy. Today we dipped the tail today with garlic, that dipping dye, chartreuse, and I don't know if that made a big key factor today. And my client was just like, "Hey, I love dipping dye." I was like, "Yeah, I can dip it," and sure enough, it worked. You know, the other day we used it and it didn't work, but today it did work. So it's just something to keep in mind too.
Set up.
Throwing it on a 7-foot medium rod with a pretty fast tip. Like I said, this wacky worm's pretty light, so you want a pretty fast tip in order to be able to throw it. And set the hook, you don't want a stiff rod, you yank it out of the fish's mouth and stuff. So you do want a little bit of a tip to it, to where it's easier to cast. That's the main thing to it, is the tip. And I'm throwing on 12-pound fluorocarbon. I think, Bill, you use mono on yours.
I do at times. That was more of a convenience because I had a rod that I'd been throwing topwaters on, so I just started on that conveniently. But I actually prefer it on same thing, fluorocarbon.
Oh yeah, so I'm throwing mine on 12-pound fluorocarbon. I like the lighter line because you get a lot more bites to it versus the 20 pound is real thick and it's harder to cast too with a small
The
bait.
fluorocarbon does help because that light worm, to get it down, it helps to have a line that will sink as well.
Yeah. Another key bait too for us has been a rattle trap. We've been throwing just a shad color rattle trap today, and we caught a lot of fish on it today. And especially if something good hang off the side of the boat, if the fish starts schooling up, you pick that rattle trap up real quick and you're gonna catch that fish probably 9 times out of 10. But even just trolling down the bank with it, we caught a lot of fish on it. And like I said, we've been doing really, really well up shallow. Like I said, about 3 foot or less. Back of these creeks, these lily pads, grass, docks, pretty much anywhere shallow. Those have been the two best baits for me. It's been working. And then today we went deep for a little bit, threw some Caroline rigs and caught some fish doing that.
What are you throwing on that?
I'm throwing the kicker fish bubble fry, chartreuse pepper.
Smash tech.
Smash tech, my bad.
Smash tech.
Smash tech. It's smash tech,
It's,
but
it's the same bait.
yeah.
Smash tech actually bought the mold and rights to the bubble fry when Kickerfish went out of business. So it's
yeah, it is a
Exact
smash. It is a
same
smash
bait.
tech. I was just going old school. I guess kicker fish is the way I
yep.
first
That's
thought
the way
about
I knew it.
Yeah.
Chartreuse.
chartreuse pepper, and also the LFT. I can't even think of the name.
Magic shad.
Magic shad.
Flip bait.
Yep. So other than that, I mean, y'all got any more questions? What else y'all should do?
You'll put that line in lily pads or just on the edge?
Yep, in the lily pads. We were in the lily pads today. I was power pull down and lily pads all over the boat, and we were throwing as far as we can. Like today, like 5 fish we caught today. We get hung up in the lily pads, and I have to go get it. With
Trolling motor comes in handy.
Just
Yeah,
set the hook. Just set the hook and go pick it up.
yeah.
Set the hook.
So throwing the lily pads, and you set the hook, and these fish are crazy fighting right now. And so they're getting hung up on these lily pads. Just hold your rod tight. Just don't let them get you slack and trolling motor over there and go get it. So other than that, good luck tomorrow. Like I said, I've been college fishing for the last 3 years. So if y'all want to talk college fish, I'll be more than happy to. But other than that, good luck.
Any more questions? No. All right. Well, hey, bonus time. We got old Magic Mike McFarland back here. Magic Mike.
Mike. Oh,
My
he's
boy
got
right here.
he's got this old thing, so I'm gonna go over tonight and I'm
It was
gonna use that
old.
hair club for men stuff, and I'm gonna get rid of all the gray.
Hey man, I said it with OL. I didn't use a D.
Oh,
God.
that's a Texas thing.
I'll take some
Texas
old.
thing.
Oh,
Y'all know
I'll
Mike?
take the old. The wisdom is coming along.
Yeah. Y'all know Mike. If not, Mike has been in this business for forever. He's got a ton of knowledge too, and he's been on the lake for several years now. And he's one of my personal favorites, that's for sure. He's a great guy, good dude. So pick his brain as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Facebook viewers, throw me some questions. I didn't anticipate on talking, so I didn't plan on anything. What I'm gonna do is kind of follow up in a few things. Number one, I just learned something that I would have paid money for. Mr. Duplessis just gave you guys some meat, man. I learned something. I can tell you fish don't act like that on the West Coast, it's just the opposite. They do migrate in the backs of the creeks, the bait go back in there, but they're completely different lakes. They don't even, it's basketball, baseball. So I just learned a plethora. You guys should really, anybody that saw that, if you missed it, go back and see it and listen very closely to what that man was saying, because it's real simple. He didn't make it rocket science, and he didn't talk about, I'm not trying to sell you anything. That was amazing. So thank you, Duplessis. I learned a lot, really did. Couple things. I love children. I love the high school guys. I want to help you guys out. All right. The jig thing that Billy's got going just clicked for me. Probably a great way for you to follow up in that. Here's one of my favorite jigs for it. Okay, they make a 3/16. I usually use a 5/16 or a 7/16. That's one of my favorite jigs. I've talked about it before. It's a peanut butter PB&J, so it's got that brown. It's got that favorite purple that they love. You can put a green pumpkin small trailer on it. Trim that skirt right at the hook. Get the smaller one. Because what Billy's talking about, that's where you're going to throw it. Around the grass. You don't want this heavy one. This is a 5/16 thing, or 7/16. This is half
If
ounce.
those young crawfish come around, they really key in on that.
But when he said that, it just clicked for me. If they're already going on that, this could be beneficial to you high school guys. Santone's awesome. It's got an extra heavy duty gauge hook. If you do get into a big fish on it, you ain't going to lose it. It's not going to straighten that hook out. But definitely, if you do it, use the 3/16. And my choice is peanut butter and jelly this time of year. And I put just a green pumpkin small trailer. Keep it small. Remember, they're small. So that's a tip for the high school boys, okay? Elaborate on the spoon bite. What I do this time of year is actually look for the bar fish, which is not a sand bass. It's a yellow bass. And they don't get that big. I mean, yeah, you can see a record 2 pounds. But the average yellow bass is about 4 inches. 3.5, 4 inches. That's the ones they really like to eat. And so the big spoon will get you that bigger bite. But what I found is when I do is I take either a sabiki rig. Anybody know what a sabiki rig is? Okay, sabiki rig's kind of like a drop shot rig, but it's real finesse and it's really tiny. You can put little flies on it. You can put all different kinds of little tiny things. It's a bait catcher. In the ocean, they use a sabiki to catch their bait. Okay. So what I'll actually do is I'll take a small spoon, a silver spoon like Billy said, I'll take a sabiki rig, and my first searching is for the barfish. And the minute that I get into a good school, find them with the graph, and I drop that in there, and I'm confirming that I got a 3 or 4 inch barfish, I match the size of that barfish with the spoon. Now I may not get that giant fish that 6 or 7 inch spoon is going to get, but I catch more, and I get them 5, 6, 7 pounders a little bit more. So that can get you a little bit more out of some of those areas when you're in those barfish. Because I promise you, if you've got barfish this time of year, you've got bass everywhere. Everywhere. And I mean, now you get a gun on your source. You guys are a source of barfish, okay? I'm just pretend you're grouped up. All I got to do is start looking the perimeter around you, and I'll have bass hanging out. And they'll come and go. They'll come and bother you, hammer the barfish, and leave. It's really unique. So the other thing that can happen is that spoon and that sabiki rig, by actually catching those I mix them up, the barfish, by actually catching them, you're creating chaos. How many guys have talked or heard about you get one fish to bite and turn everything on? Okay, so I actually go ahead and I'll tell one of the clients, get to catching them. We want to catch 15 of them barfish. We want to have that get alive down there. They're fighting, they're going all over the place, and that actually can draw some of those bass in. So key in on that barfish. It's really important this time of year. If you want to catch a big over, you really just want to go out there and have a 30-pound sack, 25, 30, 35-pound sack. That's the way to get it. Cranking. I know there was a question about cranking. I'm with Billy. I don't crank this time of year. I suppose you could. If I did, I wouldn't be throwing anything real big. I might throw like a 6XD. I might have one on for some of the offshore schooling that's still going on, believe it or not. I was out this afternoon and we were in 30 feet of water throwing to a nice ridge like he had. 50 more yards offshore, they start busting. So, still got a mix. You got a little bit of everything. 66-degree water is not cold. The spoon bite and the roadbed bite should be about where it's about right now. So, look for that.
It's peaking.
Yeah, it should be at its peak about right now. If you can get, like I said, tomorrow I've got a full day trip, and first thing I'm gonna do is probably throw a buzz bait and tinker when the sun's up. If it comes up tomorrow, I'm gonna spend the rest of the time behind that graph. And if we ain't on barfish, we ain't wetting the line. I can go grind shallow. Tournament anglers, don't get confused with that. You're only gonna do that if you got 5 in the well. And you're saying, all right, it's time to hopefully catch an over. Then you're gonna key on that. I would say the tournament anglers just stay shallow. Like Brian said, plenty of big fish shallow. So you may end up getting your limit shallow wacky style, like Austin said. Combination, the jig, the wacky. At that point, once that limit's in the boat, maybe don't leave the shallows, but change. Start throwing a big convict. Go back to the buzzbait. One of you commit to the buzzbait only, because you're looking for that bigger over.
One thing too, Mike, and I know you'll agree with this. Hey, just because it's bluebird skies this time of year, doesn't mean they won't bite at top water.
That's right.
When you're fishing that shallow, especially that grass, that buzzbait or even sometimes a frog can get you a really big bite of shallow as well.
Because they got covered. Okay, they got things to hide under. It doesn't matter that sun. I've actually even Lake Roosevelt, Phoenix, Arizona. I've had a topwater bite all day long in the middle of summer, when you would never ever expect it. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you hand your client and they go, "Well, oh, the topwater, what's wrong with you? Just throw it, just catch fish." Dirty water. So clear water, vegetation, all those things kind of do have a puzzle to it. Don't worry about the sun being up if you're throwing topwaters near that shallow vegetation. Or docks. They can come roaring out of the dock.
Buzzbait's such a reaction deal.
They can come roaring from, I've seen them on this lake, I've seen them literally on a buzzbait, and I've seen them a lot more in natural lakes like this, that you throw a buzzbait down the lane here and the fish comes from 20 feet away, and you see the weight coming, here he comes, 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 and hits that bait. So they can identify a buzzbait from a long ways away, especially a squeaking one, or that one that's tapping and head, it's obnoxious. Any questions?
So if you're throwing a frog, what color and how aggressive?
White. The only thing I do to my frogs, and I learned this from Mr. Sharp, Mr. Sharp got to be a judge and got to fish with quite a few pros, and I never ever let the bottom just be plain. If I have to take a marker, I'll just do some scribbling on the bottom. It gives them just a little broken up bottom. It's not as bright. They don't get to identify it so clearly. And I notice that I do get more strikes. So if you have a frog that doesn't have anything on the bottom, it's just all one color on the bottom, take a black marker, draw Mickey Mouse face on it. I mean, you can literally do anything. Just scribble on it to break up the monotony of that flat color. And believe me, it will make a difference. It really will. Also, take your legs. I learned this from Billy. Cut one of your legs a little shorter. Just a tiny bit shorter, and it helps that frog walk. Okay? Any other questions? Come on, give me just a few, since I didn't plan on a seminar. My mind's still racking on what else I can talk to you about.
How aggressive are you with that frog?
Right now, I'm not. Right now, a lot of sit time. I am getting some frog bites still. They're few and far between, but I really got to let it sit. I'll walk, and then let it just sit. Maybe talk to my client or something, turn around, walk it one more time, and blow up on it.
What frog do you use?
Spro. The Spro's pretty much, I use the bully wall a little bit. But most of the time, I'm going to throw that Spro. It's a good frog. One other thing, too, is coming. I like to talk about what's up and coming. As the water keeps cooling, we're about 66 now, maybe 67 by the end of the day. We're going to drop in the 50s. You're going to see these fish really fall feast. They're going to even kind of act like they're schooled up in the mouth. So they're really going to fatten up all the way till that water is about 54. All right? And that can happen fast here in Texas. All right, I moved here in 2013. I visited October 19th. It was gorgeous. I came back 6 weeks later, and it was snow and ice. Okay? So it can happen really fast. But as soon as that water blasts through that 50-degree water column, starts getting below 54, that's when you're going to break out them round traps. That's when you're going to break out them jerk baits. And that's when I don't leave the shallows anymore until...
That's when that orange deal starts kicking in.
Right. And
That's
I don't
when
mess
that true
with...
winter bite starts
The
kicking
winter
in.
bite after that, and I don't leave the shallows until later on in the, late January, late February where I start throwing it glad bait.
On the frog too, a lot of you guys that watch channel know how fond I am of old yellow belly. I'm throwing white too. When we get to fall, I tend to lean to white, shell pattern. So white is.
So I actually saw Billy there throwing it. I was like, "Where's yellow belly?"
Yeah, that's true.
And I actually just cut yellow belly off today. I'm finally like, oh, I don't care what Billy says. Yellow belly won't catch nothing.
Well, I know I cut him off a week ago. I should have let you know.
In fall, I'm like, I'm done with yellow belly.
Yeah, that's right. So this is kind of open forum. Any last questions? All three of us up here. Anything that y'all want to ask? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I've heard all four of you say a little bit about slowing down.
Right. For
this-
post frontal.
For what?
For on the post frontal days.
Okay,
Right.
okay. But next weekend, when that cold front comes in, it's pretty common just to slow down. Just everything you're throwing, slow down.
That's actually very true. So what happens is when those fish, especially the shallow fish, this is why I say they get affected more because the temperature swings in the shallow water are much greater. Whereas the deep water may have gone from 69 to 66 or 67, the shallow water can go from 72 to 62 in a day sometimes. So what happens when those fish, being cold-blooded animals, when they get a sudden shock of cool air, cool water, and that temperature drops, their metabolism has a sudden shock as well, and it slows down. They move slower, their whole system, everything about them moves slower. That's why I started going to that jig, that's why that wacky worm, all those slower techniques start becoming a player. But if you notice on our deep stuff, well, we're throwing Alabama rigs, spoons.
Yeah.
We're still throwing more moving baits, more active baits. Those fish aren't as affected by it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
That's it.
And like on that wacky worm too, all of our bites have been just letting it fall and just reeling your slack in and then just picking it up and this fish is already there.
Yeah. They're biting it on the fall, or as soon as it hits the bottom, that worm's just standing up. Because with that nail weight, that trick worm actually stands up. And so that's, you're getting your bites on the dead slow.
And then now I'm gonna grow you guys. I want you to really think of this. I want you to listen to what I'm gonna say. How many people have heard someone say, when you think you're going slow, go slower? Okay? You can't go slow enough. How many of you realize that one full reel of your handle, see my hand here, one full reel of most bait casters is over 2.5 feet of line.
It's about how much, right? We lose it that much. It's
So,
big deal.
young man, when you're fishing, you realize, first of all, let me back up. I'm OCD, man. I love to be, if I can be energized, I can drive these guys out of their tree. So I always start out hammering. I want to get it out of my system. If the fish are going to eat good for me, they're going to tell me right away. And so within a half an hour to an hour, I can realize, okay, today's not an OCD day, Mike. You're going to have to slow it down. You're going to take it easy. And so immediately what I want you to think about, when you say, all right, fishing's tough, I'm slowing down. You tell your buddy, hey man, I'm slowing down. What can clarify it for you? Pay attention to your reel handle. You say, man, I'm crank. Even though I'm going slow, I'm still doing an awful lot of reeling. You ain't going slow then. That means you're moving that bait still. So a rod swept from here to here can move a bait 6 feet. And if you're on an incline, that bait can roll 8, 9, 10, 12 feet. So the reeling is how I ultimately mentally recognized that I'm overfishing. So I should be, if I'm working a jig, I should be reeling in just little increments, just like the jig is. The jig slips in increments, so is the reel, just a little at a time. If I find I just move the jig and I got 2 full cranks, no wonder I'm not catching it.
With my jig, to make sure that I slow down, I actually and I tell my customers this all the time, do not move the bait with your reel handle. Never. Only take up slack. That way I have full control of how fast or how slow I can visually see how much I'm moving it, and my customers can as well. It's just an indicator for them where they can actually tell exactly how fast or how slow they're moving that bait, and then point down to your slack up and start over. Because there certainly ain't nothing wrong with letting a jig just sit there.
Right.
That's the one thing about a jig, when you're slowing on the jig, that skirt's always moving.
Always.
That skirt's always pulsing, moving in
Same
and
thing
out.
with a drop shot, same thing with a whack.
That one's standing on the bottom
It's alive.
wagon. Yeah.
It's moving.
So these are baits when you're slowing down that you can't go slow enough. Like Mike said, I'll tell you another key time to watch out for that, guys, is tournament fishing especially is when you catch a good keeper, when you catch a good fish and you're excited. Watch what you'll do. Watch what you'll do. You'll be fishing, let's say you're fishing a chatterbait and you're just crawling it just fast enough to make the blade wiggle, right? And boom, you catch a fish and you reel him in, you throw him in a live well, you slap hands and you go.
And ask yourself this, how many, me included, how many times have we been out there and we're fishing, we're working in a few hours and we finally catch one, and then our buddy says an hour later, what happened, man? I thought we were on. We probably were on them. You were on something. You had something going in the right direction. You changed. More than likely, the adrenaline, the excitement, you weren't focused on what was I doing.
Yeah, and that's no knock on anybody. I'm guilty of that. I'm so
Me too.
guilty of that. When
A
I
lot of
catch a
times
big
I have
fish.
to tell myself, stop, think, focus on what was I doing, and then replicate it. And once you get that down, that's part of a pattern, replicating a pattern. Then you can usually expand it. And figuring a pattern, replicating the pattern, and expanding a pattern wins tournaments.
Any more? Fire away if you got them. All right. Simpson Rush, y'all catch any fish on Hubbard anymore?
Not really.
Not lately. They moved off that stuff we was fishing a little while back.
It's more work than anything.
I heard Hubbard and Ray Roberts just went south right now. They're brutal.
There you go.
They're brutal.
Do any of you guys know anything about Texoma?
I know how to
figure
get there.
Austin might.
He might. He'd be the best one. I
Last
went fishing.
I knew last time I was at Texas, I blew my dad's motor up on his boat. But
Where'd you blow it up at? I'm
going
from there. I lived there
going
when I
across the
caught
lake, just take from takeoff. But he was actually there not too long ago fishing the Costas and finished the top 20. But that was a month ago now.
Which so much has changed
Yeah.
weather-wise.
I was about to say, I don't even know what to
So
tell
no
you.
real current info. Sorry about that. No current info on Texoma.
You live in Texoma though?
Well, I just moved up here,
Oh, you did?
but I mean, Texoma was 5 miles from my house.
Really?
I was on it all the time, and down there, I'll take that shaky head and Cinco with that chartreuse stick,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go a little rip rap wall, and it's probably 100 yards long.
Yeah.
I'll just go up and down, back and forth.
And the worst part about the lake is how clear that water is, and you just be able to see them, and you can just see them like, why are they not eating?
That's what I like.
On
If I can see,
California,
if I
boy,
can
he
see the
loves
fish,
that.
if I can see the fish, I
No,
guarantee you
I
that I'm
hate
gonna
it.
catch it. I'm gonna have to
And
come
they're
back,
real
I'm
shallow
gonna
on,
catch it.
on the rip rap.
So,
Yes, sir.
I'm bad about moving around a lot, so should we maybe just pick us out a 400-yard area and stay there all
So
day long?
these are decisions that we face all the time in fishing. This is a daily grind. for
Especially
us.
being a guide, it's a
We do it
99%
too.
mental game for us.
And you talk about tough, you know, tournament fishing at the top end, those guys got to catch them for 4 days. We got to catch them for 250. They've got four days for 8 tournaments.
250, man.
They've got 4 days for 8 tournaments. They got 32 days a year that they have to catch them. We've got 200 days a year. So as far as depleting an area, beating up an area, is it time to go, is it time to leave? We face that decision more than anybody in the world. And the only thing I can tell you is you have to factor in your weather conditions. So right now with the post frontal, I'm prone to give an area more time depending on my confidence in what that area holds. So if I found an area and I'm seeing obvious signs of life, I'm seeing obvious signs of activity, I'm going to anchor down. You know, I'm going to tell you something, especially fishing shallow guys this time of year, when it's not spawning time, any time outside of the spawn, when they're not territorial, in that shallow water, noise is a big factor. We've seen that. Both of you guys have been both. We've seen. Hey, I am big on when I find an area, when I get a biter. Even sometimes I don't even have to get a bite. I'll just see obvious signs of life that make me feel confident in an area. I will drop those poles and I will literally just sit there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. Let those fish get settled in. No noise, no trolling motor noise. I'll tell guys in my boat, be careful how you step. Don't shut any lids. Be silent. And it's just, your decision has got to be based on your confidence in that area. So if it's showing you signs of life, hey, stay with it. Grind it out. This time of year, that can pay off, especially under these conditions. But
Comb it out.
So the hardest part we deal with as guys is we just smacked them here the other day.
Yep.
And by God, we're going to keep trying to smack them there and smack them there. And they can be nowhere within 500 yards of this spot. But in our mind, we are still trying to force this spot on them just because we know we just caught them there.
you have
And
to
so
really
it's
be
always
observant.
in your mind, and it's always got to be. You always got to have an open mind.
I think it's the observance of, are the elements that you need there? Is the bait there? Are the fish there? And it's like deer hunting. So if you were in a tree stand and the deer were 200 yards out there, you don't got a shot, you're in a bow, okay? You're not gonna get a shot till they're 60 yards, but they're coming. I'll pay you, shit, I'll sit there all week. As long as the deer keep coming, I don't care if they take 1 step a day. Coming my way, I see it, they're coming, I'm gonna wait.
So if you can see those signs.
You see no signs like he said, I want you to think of this. Comb, what's a comb do when it goes through your hair? gets every single little deal, right? It doesn't have a, unless.
Oh.
But put that mentality in your head, comb it out.
Yeah.
I talked months ago about the spot within the spot. Maybe there's one stump down in that little football field, and you've got to hit it. You've got to hit it.
That's mainly what I was talking about. Was remember that in July I had one little tree that was just magical. It's 1 week, and I have not caught a fish off of this tree.
How many times
since
you been
then.
back there?
I bet I fished it probably every day.
Oh yeah.
Almost.
So-
I got a friend of mine that moved here.
There
I mean,
is
I
a-
probably just quit fishing, and it's
Yeah.
been since July I've caught fish on it.
There is definitely a time to pick up and move, but that is the decision that we all as anglers face.
We're human.
And you have to figure it out for yourself, and I have to figure it out for myself, and it's different for everybody to some extent. But depending on your confidence, that's all I can tell you. You know, I tell everybody the number one thing that anybody can do to be a better angler is just pay more attention. How many times have we been in the boat and maybe there's some lily pads? I go, you hear that? And Mike's like, hear what? I'm like, you don't hear that? It'll be a shad just sucking a lily pad. I mean, that's when I'm serious about fishing, when I'm trying to get a video done, when I'm on a guide trip, I'm trying to put people on fish. There is no detail that, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that I miss. We all miss stuff. But I'm really trying to focus on every little clue that I can get. And that's just a really good example of one that stands out. When I'm in lily pads and I hear, I'm like, oh, we're going to catch them at them pads right there. You know? And so those little things like that when you're in an area, whether it's a shad running on the surface and he's 500 yards out there, man, if you can notice that, it's so big.
That's just like a fresh scrape from a deer or a fresh poop, or there's some fresh trail. Your little details are usually, if we have or I have a real rough day, I probably missed a lot of detail. I didn't pay attention to those details.
That usually happens when we're out there just kind of going through our routine fishing, what we've been fishing. And
the other mistake we really make, we all do, my buddy moved here from Arizona because he caught a 10-pound fish. He literally caught the fish, got home, called his wife, said, we're moving.
We're moving to Texas.
and a half, really.
It was a giant, but we moved here. Okay, I think it's 13 by now with Bill. But the funniest thing is, caught that fish in spring full of eggs. And this is what we do. This is what humans do. Sorry, Bill, forgive me. But Bill just went fishing today. He texted me a message. I'm out fishing. I said, where are you at? He said, where do you think?
Yep.
It's November, dude. I mean, you caught that fish in March. Just getting ready to spawn. What are you doing? Yeah. So we tend to get caught up in the yesterday. We get caught up at 9 o'clock this morning. I go to lunch and I get back. Where we going? Where we going, guys? Well, we're going back where we were at 9 o'clock this morning. If I go back there and take a look at it, and it looks the same with the graph and everything, that's probably good. But if I just made it say we're going back there, man, woo! I could have just thrown the biggest goose. You know, you can't go by history. But
yep, just details. That's the biggest thing for that. Any more questions?
momentary details.
Since they're doing tournament fishing, your little tip about when you're idling out, not looking at a map, but looking at your graph, because you're looking for live.
Oh yeah, from a couple weeks ago. Yeah, okay. So this is something that I do. Yeah. So I talked about
Tell you
this.
right away.
Talked about this a while back, but one thing I do if I'm at a new lake or a lake that I'm unfamiliar with, which some of you guys may be before, and I don't know, what is going to happen. Now this won't help you out for that 3 foot or less bite. You can't see that on this. But as far as an offshore bite, on any lake you go to, any time of year, if you're thinking about fishing offshore structure, if that's in your game plan, what you can do is when you idle out from the boat ramp, when you first take out, especially here in the south where all these lakes are so fertile, there's literally some form of life almost anywhere you go. Turn on your turn your map off, turn on your sonar, you're down in